gentleman who's going to give you his insights into what his experience with Mary Bird is. And he is here today, so they must have done a good job. Because it didn't start off that well. And he has enormous compassion and experiences in the community. So it's nice to see an industry leader, CFO of Popeyes, CFO, Smoothie King, Smoothie Kings after you work out on Saturday or Sunday. Now he's in health and fitness. And I've always just asked him how you go from high cholesterol, fatty foods to the world of fitness. And it must have been somewhere in the transition, but we made it through. So I want to thank you for coming here as a testimonial. I want to thank you for being able to be cured and working with your organization. So I appreciate it.
Good evening, and thank you. My thanks to the leadership of Mary Perkins, of course, Northwestern Mutual of Louisiana, of course, that's CPS Louisiana, for their invitation, the chance to share a few thoughts tonight at the gala. There are 4 things I want to touch on this evening. First, my cancer experience. Second, what I took away from it. Third, why we give. And finally, a little Lagniappe you might find interesting. Before I begin, I need to make a confession, though. This is one of the hardest 10 to 15-minute talks I've ever prepared for in my life, and I thought pretty frequently. It just doesn't fit the usual mold of things you want to speak about or that you're experiencing and sharing. You know, Speech 101, for example, says, start with some levity and humor. And I was unsure if that was really appropriate. And after much research and given the circumstances, I actually found a book that I thought might offer the possibility of some levity. It's a book entitled Jokes from the Hole. I'm not kidding you. And in retrospect, I just didn't think that would work either. See, I had colorectal cancer. I'll spare you that. So after realizing that wasn't a good idea either, I said, you know, Bryan, forget convention for once in your life. Just speak from the heart. So, with all due respect to Dr. Sin's book, and with all due respect to Speech 101, here I go. First, let me talk about my cancer experience. You know, when I received the itinerary for tonight, I noticed something that caused me to pause. I travel around the world now speaking in fitness and wellness conferences. And our companies every day help people live healthier lives. It's what my wife, partners, and I do every day. But when I read tonight's agenda a few weeks ago and Shelley said it, it said something on it that really just stopped me in my tracks. Bryan O'Rourke, cancer survivor. You know, fate, it seems, is not without a sense of irony, because I've gone through conferences and spoken about health and fitness and was even doing it in the midst of my treatment and never once was introduced with that title. So I thought that kind of ironic, because I'm really not sure that's how I saw myself. Now, it's not as though I didn't survive, because I did. I'm very thankful for that. As was mentioned, it's not as though you're not scared to death because you think you might die. And that's exactly what was going on for me. You know, cancer is a very individual and unique experience for everyone and the caregivers and loved ones that go through it with them. I myself had some unique experiences, and one was extremely difficult, and that was that my dad was also fighting cancer at the same time. And so Christmas Eve of last year, when I got unhooked for my last chemo treatment, only a few days later he passed from leukemia. He suffered while I was being treated, and that's kind of unique. I was wondering at times if he was hanging on just to make sure I was okay. And the point is that each of us deals with these things in unique ways. And so when I think of my cancer experience, I really don't think of myself per se as a cancer survivor, even though I survived. I really think of myself as a lucky guy, a real. And so, all I have a sense of out of my experience is gratitude. Gratitude for Mary Perkins, gratitude for my family, my friends, my partners, because they cared and they were there for me. And so I'm very grateful. The second thing I want to talk about is, what did I learn? Well, I know many of you watched in amazement last year at the Saints Superbowl one, right? The season, to me it seems surreal because I've been a Saints fan all my life, like a lot of you probably have, and have waited for the other shoe to drop. Have any of you read Drew's memoirs yet? Yeah, great book. My wife's read it and I'm reading it now. At the end of his acknowledgement, Drew writes, and last but certainly not least, I'd like to thank the city of New Orleans for embracing me at a time when I needed it most. You saved me. That's what he wrote. And that's interesting because many people might think that Drew saved New Orleans, not that New Orleans saved Drew, right? But I kind of understand what he means. I was saved by loved ones, and I was saved by a great institution of caring people. And so it's why I'm so honored to be here this evening. And I was saved by a lot of heroism, kind of unsung heroism. Arthur Ashe is a famous tennis player, I'm sure you know who he is, and he spoke of heroism once by saying that true heroism is remarkably sober. It's very undramatic. It's not the urge to surpass all others at whatever cost. It's really the urge to serve others at whatever cost. So when you experience cancer, you fight through it. A lot of people talk about how heroic, you're being. But the secret truth for me, and what I took away from it is, I really wasn't a hero at all. I was just riding the back of a bunch of other heroes. My family and the great people at Mary Perkins who did so much. My partners, my family, my friends, they were heroes. I was just hanging on. So that's what I learned. That's what I took away from it. My third point is about giving back. To draw on another line from Drew's book, since I'm in the midst of reading it, he has in chapter 13 a reference to Luke 12:14. And I'm sure some of you may know the passage. I will kind of paraphrase it. For whom much is given, of him much will be required. So, given the fact that every year more than 5,000 people are treated by this institution for cancer, and I was one of them, and that last year 2,200 new people were treated by this institution, it's just amazing. We've got to give and support this kind of behavior, especially in this kind of doing and giving, because over 25% of these people don't have the financial means to really get the care they need. And they receive help from an institution like this, and from people who give like you. Especially when you consider that over 5,400 adults were screened for free, and how important screening is in prevention. And most of this is funded by events like tonight. So since I'm one lucky soul, and was saved by the heroism of so many others, I am compelled to give, and we must give, and that's why it's so great to be here with you this evening. Now for some Lagniappe, and I'll be wrapping it up. I've got a shout out to some technicians who are the guys and gals that were blasting me with radiation in that back room, behind closed doors. I'm going to give away a few little secrets before I wrap up tonight. Not really on the books, so don't tell anybody. First off, these people treated me like a rock star, frankly. For example, in the back, that most of you guys don't get to go and see, there are all these little candies and snacks and little drinks and little special treats that us patients get. And the x-ray team would always work around my schedule. I had to fly out. They'd meet me sometimes at 5:30 in the morning to make sure I got my treatment so I could hop on a plane, go do business, and come back. I mean, it's quite astonishing. They once even tattooed a smiley face on my cheek right here so I could go home and make my wife laugh. Now, that's some truth. It reminded me of Coach Sean Payton, you know his book, The Home Team. I've read that one. And he talks about his secret weapon during the Super Bowl. Are you familiar with it? There's a guy by the name of Mike Ornstein, and he was Payton's secret weapon during the Super Bowl. I'm not kidding. I don't want to ruin the book if you haven't read it, but basically, Payton used Mike during the week of the Super Bowl to do all types of psychological tricks on the Colts. He had this guy hang Saints banners along the route that the Colts took every day from their hotel to the field. I'm not kidding. This guy would give the Saints players the best gifts, and he knew it was just great. The Colts people. Read the book. I'm not kidding. So, why these tactics? Well, of course, Payton's a big fan of Bill Parcells, and Parcells told him, hey, listen, don't leave anything to chance. And he did. Because the difference between winning and losing often are very little things, right? And that is why tonight, a show of thanks to my technician people, I had bags of candy and markers, and I'm going to be having those delivered in large quantities to the Covington site later in the week. Because those little things do make a huge difference. And I didn't want the Marysburg Perkins people to think that I didn't notice those little things. So in closing, thanks so much for letting me be here this evening with you and lending me your ear. I want you to have a pleasant evening, and I'm so grateful for your giving. And I hope you continue to be generous as you have been already. Thank you.